This is something that I've wanted to talk about for a really long time. It's something I'm passionate about, something I have a lot of opinions about. I'm aware that the people that currently follow me on YouTube don't follow me for this kind of thing, so if this isn't your cup of tea, that's okay, I understand. I'll see you another time. But I just need to go off. This video somehow made its way across my peripherals, and I just knew the time has come. After all these years. The video we're going to be tearing to pieces today is called Skinny Girl Reacts to Thin Privilege, parentheses, how is this a thing? If you're new here and you found my video somehow and you're here hoping to hear a fat girl talk about how thin privilege is absolutely a thing and lay into this skinny person because she's wrong in every way, you're in the wrong place. If you follow me and you're expecting me to lay into the thin privilege girl and talk about how she's an idiot in all ways, you're going to be disappointed, my friend. I'm here to talk about how both of these people have really dumb takes, and I'm going to break it down for you with facts and logic. After all that, if you're still here, welcome. I appreciate you. Let's get started.
This is real life.
This is real life, unfortunately.
Where today we will be discussing the topic of thin privilege. And obviously, having thin privilege myself, I'm obviously very well equipped to discuss this topic. Before I actually show you guys this video, I just want to qualify what thin privilege apparently is, although I'm sure you can guess. The thin in thin privilege is not about being supermodel skinny, but being at a weight that means you are not subjected to judgment and harassment from strangers. It means that you can go into almost any clothes store and find something that will fit. You can eat a hamburger in public without people clearly judging your decision. You can wear something figure-hugging without people sniggering at you. What even is going on?
Don't worry. I'm here to tell you exactly what's going on. Both of you are wrong, and all of this is dumb. I'm here to explain to you both why both of your takes are complete headassery.
You're thin, you have a certain privilege. The everyday tasks that a thinner person can take for granted. They can leave a plus-size person like myself feel full of anxiety.
I guess that's just a few examples of what it's like to be healthy.
No, actually, that's a few examples of self-love and confidence. This is something that we're going to be circling back to a lot. This type of anxiety has a name, actually. It's called the imaginary audience, and it applies to both thin people and fat people. Anybody can have this. Wearing something figure-hugging and assuming that everybody thinks you look fat and gross is a symptom of this particular type of anxiety. Eating something in public and worrying what people think about you or what you look like while eating that thing is also a symptom of this, and a very common one. The only people, in fact, who are free of that type of anxiety are people with a lot of self-confidence, a lot of no fucks given attitude.
I genuinely hate how people employ the terms curvy and thick and plus size to girls who are genuinely overweight. If you just go and look at companies' websites and Instagram pages like Fashion Nova and other similar brands, they like to use girls who are genuinely overweight and then describe them as curvy. It drives me absolutely mad.
What exactly do you want us to call clothing sizes for women my size? Fat cunt bitch size? Cow plus? Whale chic?
With all the pictures and the interview, do you as the editor of Cosmo even infer that this may not be a good weight to be? And here are you as an editor of a very popular magazine telling women it's fine to be 300 pounds. I don't get it.
No, you really don't.
I get what you're trying to do, but the mental health thing is, where you would not put somebody on the front with a bottle of vodka, an alcoholic, or somebody with drugs, embracing drugs.
Not the same.
This
Not the
is
same.
it.
No, it literally isn't. There is a huge difference. And the fact that there are so many people who think that these two things are actually comparable is deeply disturbing. Things that these two things have in common: unhealthy, inadvisable, can have terrible, really bad consequences. And that's it. It's literally it. Drug addiction is completely and entirely preventable. A person's choices are the only factors that go into whether or not they ever get a drug addiction. A person can go their entire life without ever taking an illegal, harmful drug. A person can go their entire lives without ever drinking a drop of alcohol and be just fine. A person cannot go their entire lives without eating. A lot of eating habits also have roots in childhood. It's something that people have very little control over until their adult life, and when they're given those bad habits in childhood, chances are they're going to struggle with it for the rest of their lives. Therefore, it's something that many adults struggle with every single day. So comparing these two things is just bizarre to me. We live in a culture that makes eating healthy a lot more difficult than eating cheap, readily available, very addictive foods. We also live in a kind of culture that puts a lot of people in a position of putting working out and mental health and going outside kind of on the back burner, while things like family and career take so much time that people do put their own health way too far back on their priority list. We do not live in a culture where harmful drugs are cheap, advertised everywhere, in your face, advertised everywhere you look, accessible on every street corner, and easily accessible. Stop acting like this is the same thing, Sydney. This ain't it.
Let me just say from the outset, there are women on this planet who have really beautiful body types who are curvy or thick, as the term goes. But these are women who still eat well, they still look after their bodies, they go to the gym. It just so happens that they might have a bigger butt or bigger thighs or an actual chest on them, which some of us can't relate to. Calling yourself plus size might make yourself feel better in the long run, but really what this video is trying to say is being overweight in particular situations makes me feel bad about myself because I'm overweight.
Being overweight makes people feel bad about themselves. You cracked the code.
So, public transport, what a nightmare for plus size people. Just think, can you sit in a seat and not be met with sighs, huffing, puffing, and someone squirming in the seat next to you, making you feel uncomfortable and knowing that they don't want you there?
I mean, to be fair, there are lots of people who other people don't want on public transport. The reason, at least I believe, that people react like that on public transport to someone who is overweight is because you take up extra room.
Oh wow, a thing I agree with. This is not thin privilege. Nobody wants anyone sitting next to them on public transport. Just nobody wants that. A bigger person is more likely to take this more personally because they're self-conscious about their weight and their size. They're self-conscious about it for good reason. The reason.
And I would say that your average passenger is probably resentful of that. In the same way that they're resentful of the idiot sitting at the back of the carriage playing music from their phone without headphones in, or the person who is talking really, really loudly on their phone.
People resent fat people in the same way they resent people who are just outright rude and entitled. They resent fat people for simply existing in the same way they resent somebody who is just being an asshole. It's just a mystery how a fat person might internalize so much self-loathing and develop so much of the imaginary audience flavor of anxiety. Just weird.
Just to be clear here, I am not talking about the super sweet, self-aware overweight people. Those are not the people I'm referring to here.
Oh, that's nice. You're not talking about the sweet overweight people. You're only referring to the ones who don't hate themselves and refuse to make apologies for simply existing in the same space that you do at any given moment. Okay, honey.
Shopping, can you go to 99.9% of the high street and shop, try on, and take an outfit away that very same day and not actually being able to go and enjoy the experience of shopping?
Girl, do you know what it's like to be 5'11" and skinny? Then you would know that I have the same struggles as you do.
The same struggles as you do. The same struggles. We have the same. Oh no. This one got me so riled up.
This is not a skinny or overweight thing. This is the clothing industry doesn't make clothes for human beings thing. Can I find pants that don't smash me in the ankle? No. Can I find dresses that don't fly up and show everyone my butt when I walk places? No. This may come as a shock to you, my friend, but you're not special.
A thinner person like you, ma'am, absolutely can walk into I will say any clothing store and find something that will fit over your body. It may not fit in exactly the way that you want, it may not flatter you, it may be a little too short, whatever, but it's not going to have you in the dressing room looking like this.
This is not a thin privilege thing. As a skinny person, it's very, very, very hard to find clothes. The end. I know this from experience because when I was doing my undergraduate degree, I worked in fashion retail. And let me tell you now, for a fact, 90% of women would walk out of the fitting room feeling depressed no matter what body shape they had. Because clothing shopping is depressing.
Yes, the fashion industry does not make clothes for human beings, and that is a big problem. I'll give you that. I also have the tall struggle, and I faced that when I was thinner too. But if you're comparing my general shopping abilities, any random clothing store now, it's much different. There's a giant leap of difference between, God, I wish this store carried dresses that were longer. Why do they not make dresses for tall people? And knowing that there's no point of even going into that store because you're going to end up in the dressing room looking like this. Because a lot of stores just don't carry it. In fact, a lot, like a surprising amount of online clothing stores don't even carry clothes for people my size or bigger. It isn't comparable.
But even so, if you do want a few more options when you go clothes shopping, there is a fairly simple solution to that problem that comes in the form of losing weight.
Wait, okay. So now you're acknowledging the difference that I just spent the last 5 minutes yelling about? You acknowledge that being thinner makes shopping easier and gives you more options. Also, fairly simple? Girl, if losing weight were simple, we would not be in the middle of an obesity epidemic. It is not simple for most people to lose weight. The end.
Grabbing something to eat, just think, can you pop into a bakery, pick up a donut, and you sit there and then enjoy it, and not feel that you've been met with stares or comment, I cannot do that.
Again, not to beat this dead horse, but that is not thin privilege. That is confidence privilege. That video makes the assumption that all thin people are naturally more confident, and I can understand where that comes from because we live in a society that constantly shames fat people from all angles, so it's easy to assume that thin people just don't have confidence issues, which is absolute nonsense. 10 years ago, I couldn't eat a donut in public without worrying and stressing over what people thought about me. Today, I am much fatter, and I can eat whatever I want in front of literally anyone. This is not an anxiety that applies only to fat people.
That donut is excessive, and maybe that's the problem.
Maybe that's the problem. I see this argument all the time and it drives me crazy because no thin person has ever indulged in an excessive treat.
I would say that the bulk of people probably don't notice when someone else is like smashing down a burger or some sort of tasty, delicious treat because the bulk of people don't actually care about what you're doing in public.
Correct. Progress, I guess.
But it's not the fault of thin privilege that people might sit there and stare or make comments when you're sitting there chowing down on something that is probably the definition of cholesterol in a circle shape.
Stop. Comedy has a big influence over this. Fat people in the past have been made a very common butt of jokes, especially around eating. This is why there's anxiety for so many people about eating in public. There are so many examples of a fat person being mocked for their weight that they could make their own documentary-length video on their own with no commentary, sometimes to truly insulting levels like this.
I'm not your average woman. I like sex, and I'm not afraid to admit. Excuse me, I just had pudding an hour ago.
Dear God.
Are you comfortable?
I think there's been a mistake.
Did you say steak?
And others that feel downright spiteful and hateful like this.
If you haven't had sex in 6 months, you're not accountable for who you sleep with.
Oh, please, when you were single, you were never that desperate, were you?
Oh, that was amazing. Yes, it was.
We're all God's children in the dark.
What is funny about this, Scrubs? Oh, haha, it's so funny. I had sex with a beautiful fat woman. I love Scrubs, but that's not even the only time that they make a joke like that. And even now, being the intellectual that I am, even now, that kind of thing can still sting. And it's gonna feel worse the more insecure you are in your own body. Again, kind of making the joke that a fat woman cannot be attractive and therefore is unworthy of anything. I'm seeing that this is getting better, thankfully, and these kind of jokes are less common than they used to be for sure. But society is still kind of forgiving of making fun of fat people. And I didn't really even realize that until I was at a healthy weight for the first time in my life, and people started mocking overweight people around me. That didn't happen when I was fat. And I'm talking about real life, by the way, not the internet. But when I was much less fat, I was genuinely shocked at the difference in the way that people treated me and the kinds of things that people would say in my presence.
In the event that someone is actually giving you a dirty look because you're shoveling a donut into your mouth, it's more than likely because they're looking at you thinking, eating that kind of food is why that person is overweight.
But it could never hurt more than it did every day of my life just being me.
Besides the handful of people who gain weight as a result of actual illnesses, the bulk of overweight and fat people look the way they do as a result of bad diet, bad choices, and bad lifestyle choices.
Yeah. And fat people know this. We get it. I look the way that I do because of poor life choices that I have made. I went through it, and as a result of going through it, I turned to comforting foods to cope. It's a bad coping mechanism that I brought with me from childhood. It's something that I always have and always will struggle with. This is a problem. I know this. Most fat people know this. People act like they're telling fat people with the audacity not to hate themselves something new when they're like, hey, yo, you might have health issues because you're fat.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! The whole time you would... The whole time!
Going to the doctors. Are you able to go and be seen and diagnose what is actually wrong with you? Or is the appointment turned into a weigh-in session?
Does this actually happen where you go to the doctor and they're like, get on the scale?
Yes! Yes! That happens. The times that I've been overweight in my life and gone to the doctor have never, ever not begun with getting on a scale. Never.
To be honest, I actually avoid going to the doctors now just because I don't feel like I'm taken seriously. Just because someone's smaller, just in the same way as someone's bigger, there's no way that you could diagnose someone's health just by looking at them.
If you're going to the doctor, just by the way, and your doctor isn't taking seriously the reason that you went to the doctor in the first place, you probably need a new doctor.
One time, I went in for an ear infection and the doctor told me to lose weight. One time, I found a lump and I made an emergency appointment to get a cancer screening. It was at an OBGYN, and as soon as the doctor walked in, he didn't look at me, he didn't introduce himself, he looked at my chart and he said, "You'd have an easier time getting pregnant if you lost weight." I told him, "I'm not here for fertility treatment, I'm here for a cancer screening." And he said, "Oh, okay," and started the appointment, never said sorry.
At my highest weights, heavier than I am now, I have been taken less seriously by doctors than when I was thinner. I haven't had a need to see doctors an excessive amount in my life, which is fortunate because I'm American. So I can absolutely remember the differences in the way that doctors handled me between the two times of being overweight and being not overweight.
First, go to hell. Secondly, you can go tippity tap dance on the tip of Master's dick somewhere else because you ain't gonna do it here.
To be fair, yes, no one can definitively diagnose you just by looking at you. I acknowledge that.
Baby steps, yes.
However, it's pretty common knowledge that if you are overweight, you will be more at risk of particular serious health problems than someone who is thinner. So yeah, it's not a thin privilege thing, it's that people get a pretty fair idea of the health issues that you might potentially have based on looking at you. They're just more obvious than with a skinny person.
People could look at me and likely think, high blood pressure. No. People might look at me and easily think, diabetes. Nope. They might think, high blood sugar. Nope. My dad is the same way, actually. He was obese for pretty much my entire life and only very recently got himself healthy. But I remember doctors would always be surprised and even shocked when he didn't actually test for any of the negative things that are usually associated with being fat. I've gotten that shocked reaction myself too, in fact. Now, could this change quickly and drastically if I don't get my shit together and start taking my health more seriously? Of course. The point is, though, that you can't tell a person's health by looking at them. Therefore, if you want to make a snarky comment on a fat person's Instagram photo or TikTok video or whatever, under the guise of it being about their health, maybe consider shutting the fuck up.
The other side of this that people don't seem to realize is that when you are a skinny person who's eating a hamburger, people feel a need to high-five you for getting some nutrition in you, because they assume that you just don't eat. I guess that's thin privilege for ya.
Right, exactly. And you can't tell a thin person's health by looking at them either. The hamburger giving you some nutrition. Yeah, that's also a shitty thing to do, and people should not do that. Some fat people will do this and try to justify it with, well, thin people try to tell us how to eat. Like some kind of pot calling the kettle black kind of thing. And yeah, that's stupid. If you're the kind of person who says things like this to a thin person, stop that. Also, so you know it's irritating when people make assumptions about your health based on how you look. Fuck!
You wouldn't go up to a thin person or comment on pictures listing off all the health problems that they may or may not have. Yet again, another privilege. So I can put a picture up on Instagram and I'm listed with everything that's wrong with me. Of course, none of it is true because nothing's wrong with me.
I genuinely believe this whole concept too is complete rubbish, because since the whole body shaming, body positivity thing came out, women are pretty supportive of each other on the internet.
Shut the hell up! I'm not going to rehash the same points I just made. So let's focus on the comments. Those comments are all over the place. I see them all over social media, and you do too. I have seen overweight women on TikTok, just for example, dancing and being happy, and even just existing and getting slammed with hateful, nasty, ugly comments like this, because there's a concerning amount of people who consider that to be acceptable. Very interesting that you ignore that bit and seem to agree that it's acceptable to just bully fat people because they're probably not healthy. It is not about caring about their health. I know this, you know this, let's not lie. People that care don't use words meant to make people feel small in order to do it. End of. And if you want to argue tough love at me, tough love is something that can be helpful when you really know a person, they're close to you, and you know that that's the kind of push that they need. Tough love is not making hateful comments like this on a stranger's social media. We all know it.
If anything, it's the skinny girls who get told to eat more and get called anorexic.
Okay, this does happen, and it's whack. I find it very difficult to believe that it happens to the same extent that it happens to fat people, though. I could be wrong. I could be. I doubt it, though. Yes, one result of body positivity advocacy is unfortunately a few dumb apples who fall way too far backwards out of the asshole of a good thing and start being just as toxic as the toxicity that they claim to be against. Almost like what you just did with your whole, no, you got it better, actually. It's almost like strangers shouldn't give each other shit about their bodies. You think it's rubbish that this happens a lot to fat women because body positivity people have been clawing and fighting for a scrap of decency and basic respect? And I think it's rubbish that this has resulted in more people being shitty to thin people. What this tells me is that we're probably both wrong and we have different struggles because we are different people. Even at my thinnest, I have never ever been compared to an anorexic person, whereas you, I'm assuming, have never been obese. We're probably both wrong to say this happens more to you than it happens to me. Stop making shitty comments about people's bodies online. Stop that. There's also this really bizarre mentality that fat people posting themselves online doing anything other than hating themselves is glorifying obesity. There are a very few people who actually glorify obesity. I have yet to encounter more than maybe 2 ever, and I follow a lot of body positivity stuff. Glorifying obesity looks like this. Oh my god, being obese is awesome. There are so many benefits to being my size. If you don't look like me, here are some tips on how to increase your body mass index. If someone tells you that being obese is not the best way to live, they're just haters. Everybody should look like me. My body is the standard that you should all strive for. Doctors don't want you. Fuck. Doctors don't want you to know about this secret drink that makes you obese in 3 weeks or less. Glorifying obesity does not look like someone just living their lives in the same way that thin people live their lives online and not feeling the need to apologize for that.
This attitude is why women like Tess Holliday, who very clearly is severely overweight, is now considered a model and a role model.
Oh, for the love of fuck. She is considered a model because she's a model. She models clothing and other things for businesses who use photos of her to promote their business. She is a model. While I don't advocate for actual obesity promotion, the thing that I distinguished just a little bit ago, I think she is a bit of a role model in the sense that fat people, overweight women, and girls need just a crumb of validation every now and then. I know for a fact that people are going to come at me about this because, oh, that's just enabling people with problems. And you're just incorrect. Being encouraged to have just a crumb of self-worth in our society that hates fat people is not going to suddenly make everybody think that being overweight is the best thing ever. It's just not gonna happen.
Before you roll your eyes at the idea of thin privilege, just try putting yourself in someone else's shoes and just looking at it from their point of view, how it could affect them or how it could make them feel. We're not having to go at thin people at all, but just simply acknowledging there is the privilege that society has unfortunately put on people who are thinner, just to combat it, just acknowledge it, be accepting of anybody of any size, and don't fall into what society and the media are trying to tell us that are right or wrong. There are bigger people in the world, there are smaller people in the world, celebrating everybody's differences, everybody being kind to one another regardless of your size.
I mean, like, maybe, but also probably no. Okay, so being accepting of any size is the problem.
Growing up, me being happy was not important. Me losing weight and being skinny was what was important. I started getting fat when I was like 7 years old, and from then on it was just, how can we make her skinny? Because there's no way she can live in this fat body. I barely had any friends. I didn't really talk to people. I tried to just be as insignificant as possible because I didn't deserve to take up any space in the body that I was living in, because my body was not a good body in the eyes of my parents and people close to me. Every day I worried that I would have diabetes and that I would just die and my life would be over because I was fat, and I wasted so much time not living. And I'm so sad for that girl who didn't get to have anything because she was told she deserved nothing. I wish someone had told me that I was allowed to be happy.
Because in my opinion, it excuses the people who continue to self-harm in the way of overeating.
This logic is so wild and so fucking stupid. Hey, you there, you sack of shit. You waste of space. Nobody wants you. Nobody loves you. Nor should they. You are unworthy. And we should and we will mock you and shame you mercilessly until you fix your depression. And make sure it happens instantly too, because I'm completely in the right to judge you and bully you, treat you as less, and go out of my way to make you feel small based on the fact that your physical appearance tells me that you don't feel happy enough. How dare you promote sadness by existing with depression? What if little Timmy sees you sitting there with your sad face and your slumping body posture? He might think it's healthy to be depressed and desirable to be depressed. You do know that depression can lead to suicide, right? What I'm doing right now, it's definitely going to help you. I obviously care about you a lot.
Yes, there are, of course, a bunch of different body types. But if we're honest, let's look at women like J-Lo or Beyonce, who are what you would describe as curvy. These women make gazillions of dollars and have cult followings. Do they have curvy girl privilege?
No, they have fame and attractive privilege, I guess. I hate using the word privilege for any of this. They're beautiful and famous, and therefore they have the privilege of not struggling in the same way that some other people struggle. And that's really what all of this boils down to. So I'm editing this video, and I had forgotten to mention that these women do go through the fat shaming business just like regular people do, if not worse, because they're celebrities. Even though they are definitely not fat, they still go through the same struggles of body image, which, as you can see, society and the media are definitely not helping. We treat being fat as if it's the absolute worst thing a person can be, and that's a problem. People have different struggles based on different aspects of their life, and that's it. It ain't that deep.
Thin privilege actually means is, let me just excuse my corrosive behavior by saying that I have it harder.
I do. Once again, I have been fat, I have been thin. Being overweight makes my life harder. It isn't even comparable. And it doesn't make it harder just because people are mean to me. No, it makes it harder because taking up more space, it sucks. It's embarrassing. Doing any type of activity like playing with one's children or wanting to go out and have a walk in the park and struggling because you're out of shape sucks. Wanting to go to an amusement park or things like that and not fitting the weight or size requirements of things you want to do sucks. Being addicted to fast food / unhealthy food and having to fight with that all of the time sucks. Being told I should cover more of my body in 100-degree heat because the sight of me might offend someone's eyeballs sucks, and also, fuck you. Life is way too short not to feel the sun on your skin. Being treated as less because society sees you as less sucks. When I was at the weight that I aspire to be at again someday, my life was absolutely easier. In so many ways that a thinner person may not consider or think of. Just like I can't off the cuff think of a whole lot of things that super thin women have to deal with, struggle with, because I can't relate to it. Again, fat people know that they're fat. I know that I am the way that I am because I need to make lifestyle changes. I'm currently in the middle of those lifestyle changes. I am working my ass off. I can make myself eat a certain way, even though it's very hard because I know that I need that for my future. I can go to the gym, working my ass off, literally, because I want to feel healthier and stronger, and I want to have a better quality of life. You would not know this by looking at me. These changes, at least on the physical appearance level, happen very slowly, and that's the issue. You want to know what motivates me to drag my fat ass to the gym and try to correct my bad behavior? Because of women that encouraged me. They encouraged me by being happy with themselves and being confident in their own skin. By saying, yes, I do not currently fit the beauty standard, but I am worthy of respect, of love, of happiness. People like that taught me how to love myself. It was the first step to gaining even a modicum of self-esteem.
You guys, it happens every time. Everyone clams up and they want to be like, no, stop it. You're beautiful. It's like, yeah, I know. I didn't say it was ugly, okay? They're not the same, right?
When I was a teenager, I was not obese. I was arguably overweight. This culture of fat shaming and watching the women in my life hate every single little flaw of their bodies and treating being fat as their biggest fear made me internalize so much self-loathing that my self-esteem was so low. I ended up marrying a guy who treated me like shit and was abusive because I was convinced, subconsciously, that nobody was ever going to want me anyway. I legitimately thought that I was not worthy of anything better. People, and especially women in our society, treat being fat as their biggest fear. This is a sad reality. Because of this, people can look at an overweight person enjoying themselves, dancing, eating, playing, joking, being happy, living their best life, and feel the need to tear them down. They cannot look at someone like me, so surface level flawed, be okay with themselves. They resent it.
So I guess that I get really mad when people use terms like thin privilege or suggest that people who are skinny and healthy haven't had to ever undergo anything difficult because the way that they look means that they're treated a particular way.
Oh my God, Sydney. No one is saying that you've never gone through anything difficult because you are thin and therefore do not have the same struggles that I do. Sit your ass down.
My life might be observationally easier because I actually take the time and make the choices to eat better, go to the gym, make choices that relate to my actual health so I don't put myself at risk.
You make those choices and take your health into your own hands. Okay, that's awesome, and I applaud you for that. So am I currently. I've made tons of bad choices that have led me to being what I am right now. And by looking at me, you wouldn't know or even guess that I'm now eating healthy and going to the gym. That's the issue. There are also thin people out there who aren't necessarily healthy, who don't go to the gym or eat right too.
I hate these body positivity movements, not because they encourage people to feel comfortable in their skin.
Are you sure about that?
But because they coin these stupid terms and then excuse bad behavior and blame it on everyone else. It's not cool.
Wait, saying, hey, I struggle a lot as a fat person and you don't have those same struggles is not blaming anything on anyone else. Bitch, what?
I'll say from experience that I have definitely been called a lot of choice names based on the way that I look, because I am what you would call pretty skinny, and I have had people throw food at me, tell me to eat cheeseburgers, and that sort of stuff is equally as insulting and nasty as just going up to someone and calling them fat and then slapping the cheeseburger out of their mouth.
I think that for someone to call you names and tell you that you need to eat more is bullshit. People should not do that. In the same way, they shouldn't slap food away from a fat person. But if you're sitting there telling me there is an equal or worse stigma against thin people because fat people have scrounged up just a tiny bit of fight back and have clawed their way up from the bottom of the barrel in a culture where we are constantly bombarded with advertising, media, etc., about how being thin is the only acceptable way to live, I don't buy it. Again, I could be wrong, as these are struggles that I can't relate to, but I don't buy it.
But the reality is that you just don't know how hard anyone else has it.
And neither do you.
There is nothing privileged about actually taking care of your body.
I agree. Health and nutrition are important, and we should always be striving to be the best versions of ourselves that we can be, both mentally and physically. So that was that. Thank you for watching that thing that was just, it was in my brain. Like I said, I've been wanting to talk about this for ages, and I had a really hard time getting all my thoughts on paper. But Sydney here really came into my life and just begged me to scream. So in the end, I want to leave you with this. Your weight, your size, does not define your worth. Whether you look like her, whether you look like me, or whether you look like someone in between or someone even off of that scale entirely, you are worthy of respect. You are worthy of love, and you are worthy of self-love. You are worthy of happiness. And if my fat ass needs to get out there and make a bunch of goofy dance videos where I'm okay with myself to help encourage you to be okay with yourself, let's go break out the camera. And with that, thank you so much for watching. We'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming next, I promise.